Over 20 million people died in World War I. 20 million in 4 years, on battlefields that stretched from Belgium to the Middle East, from Africa to the Pacific. And the most haunting thing about it is that almost nobody wanted it to happen. In the summer of 1914, Europe was the most prosperous it had ever been. Cities were modern, trade was booming, technology was advancing at a breathtaking pace. Most educated people believed war between the great powers was simply unthinkable, too costly, too destructive, too irrational. But underneath the prosperity, Europe was a loaded gun. The great powers had divided themselves into two armed alliance systems. If one country went to war, its allies were treaty-bound to follow. And every major power had been building its military for decades. Germany was building the most powerful navy in Europe, a direct challenge to British supremacy at sea. Britain responded by building more ships. France and Germany faced each other across the Rhine with millions of soldiers. Russia was modernizing its vast army. Everyone was armed. Everyone was nervous. Everyone was waiting. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was visiting Sarajevo. His motorcade made a wrong turn. It stopped, just for a moment. A 19-year-old Serbian nationalist named Gavrilo Princip stepped forward and fired 2 shots. Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were dead within the hour. The news spread across Europe in minutes, and the countdown to catastrophe began. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and issued an ultimatum deliberately designed to be rejected. Serbia accepted almost every demand. Almost. Austria-Hungary declared war anyway. And then the alliance system did exactly what everyone feared it would do. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia and France. German troops marched through neutral Belgium to attack France, and that brought Britain into the war. In just 37 days after the assassination, all the great powers of Europe were at war. In every country, men volunteered by the millions. They thought it would be over by Christmas. They thought it would be an adventure. They were wrong in ways that would take years to fully understand. By the end of 1914, the war of movement was over. Both sides had dug in. From the English Channel to the Swiss border, 700 kilometers, a continuous line of trenches scarred the earth. This was the Western Front, and for the next 4 years, it barely moved. Life in the trenches was a kind of slow misery that is almost impossible to describe. Cold, wet, rats, disease, the constant threat of sniper fire if you raised your head above the parapet. Men lived like this for months at a time. Many never spoke about what they saw. Between the 2 trench lines lay no man's land, a strip of devastated earth torn apart by months of artillery fire. Crossed by barbed wire, littered with the dead. To cross it in an attack was to walk into machine gun fire. Thousands died trying. Yards were gained and lost and gained again. On July 1, 1916, the British Army launched the Battle of the Somme. After 7 days of the heaviest artillery bombardment in history, 100,000 British soldiers climbed out of their trenches and walked toward the German lines. The German defenders had survived the bombardment in deep concrete bunkers. They emerged, set up their machine guns, and opened fire. By the end of that first day, the British Army had suffered 57,470 casualties, 19,240 men killed in a single day. It remains the bloodiest day in British military history. Across Britain, telegram boys delivered the news door to door. The Battle of the Somme lasted 4.5 months. Over 1 million men were killed or wounded. The British advance measured in kilometers. The world had never seen industrial killing on this scale before, and it still had 2 more years to run. World War I introduced the world to weapons that had never been used on this scale before. Poison gas, chlorine, then mustard gas, turned the air itself into a weapon. Men who breathed it without a mask drowned in their own lungs. Those who survived often spent the rest of their lives with damaged eyes and destroyed respiratory systems. Tanks appeared for the first time. Lumbering steel machines that could cross barbed wire and shrug off machine gun fire. Aircraft evolved from fragile reconnaissance biplanes into fighter planes engaged in dogfights over the trenches. Warfare was being reinvented in real time, each new weapon forcing new responses. The war drove innovation at a pace the world had never seen. The war was not only fought in the trenches of France and Belgium. The Eastern Front stretched for thousands of kilometers. The Gallipoli campaign saw Allied forces attempt to knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war by landing in Turkey, and fail catastrophically. Fighting spread to Africa, the Middle East, the Pacific. This was truly a world war. In 1915, under cover of the war, the Ottoman government began the systematic deportation and massacre of its Armenian population. Up to 1.5 million Armenians were killed. It was one of the first genocides of the 20th century, and the world was too consumed by war to stop it. The United States had stayed out of the war for nearly 3 years, but German submarines were sinking American ships. Then a secret German telegram was intercepted, offering Mexico-American territory if it attacked the United States. In April 1917, America entered the war. Fresh troops, fresh supplies, and fresh hope flooded into an exhausted Europe. The arrival of American troops transformed the war. The Allies now had an almost unlimited reserve of men and material. Germany knew it was running out of time. Germany launched one final, desperate offensive in spring 1918. It broke through Allied lines, then ran out of momentum. The Allies counterattacked. Germany's army collapsed. Revolution broke out at home. The Kaiser abdicated. Germany had no choice left. At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, the guns fell silent. After 1,561 days of continuous warfare, the war was over. In the cities, people celebrated, but on the front, many soldiers just sat in silence, too exhausted, too hollow, too full of things they could never unsay. The peace settlement was designed to punish Germany. The Treaty of Versailles stripped Germany of territory, colonies, and military power. It demanded reparations so enormous that Germany would not finish paying them until 2010. And it placed the entire blame for the war on Germany alone. Many historians argue it was not a peace treaty at all. It was a 20-year ceasefire. In the humiliated, economically devastated Germany that the treaty created, extremism found fertile soil. A new kind of politician emerged, one who promised revenge, one who gave the anger somewhere to go. The seeds of the next war were planted in the ashes of this one. World War I killed 20 million people, wounded 21 million more, reshaped every border in Europe and the Middle East, ended 4 empires, and created the conditions for an even more devastating war just 20 years later. Every November, a red poppy is worn in memory of those who fell. It comes from a poem written in the mud of Flanders by a Canadian doctor who watched his friend die beside him. In Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row. The war to end all wars ended nothing. But the people who fought it deserved better than to be forgotten. If this video moved you, subscribe to Echoes of the Past. New history every Tuesday and Friday, and leave a comment. Whose story from World War I do you think deserves to be remembered most? We read every one.